Welcome to the Underground, the Steel City Underground, the black and gold standard for Pittsburgh Steelers coverage. Now, here are your hosts, Joe Kuzma and Brian E. Roach.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Steel City Underground podcast. My name is Joe Kuzma. I'm one half of your hosts here for the Steel City Underground podcast, joined by my bigger brother or older brother from another mother, or whatever that was that you said with the professor there, a one Mr. Brian E. Roach, not the professor, more like the class clown. How's it going, Brian?
Yeah, I fit that description. He was the baby brother. He was not you, but professor. The professor was our baby brother from another mother.
You know, I was thinking about Goldilocks and the Three Bears when I was listening to you guys do that on the last show, and I don't know why. It was like the baby bear with the porridge and everything like that, and I was like, hey, you know, that kind of fits. Maybe we're like the three. Maybe it's Black and Goldilocks in the Three Bears or something like that. I don't know. So, well, we've got football coming once again. For those of you who are lucky enough to have NFL Network, depending on whether or not you have cable dish or you're a cord cutter, it all depends, I guess. Right now, it's very, very volatile out there in the what do you want to say? The ability to watch football and/or CBS, I guess, is a problem all over the place. As just wow. I mean, everybody's arguing with everyone, fighting over this and that. I guess PlayStation Vue now is finally getting the NFL Network back on there. I know some of the DirecTV now, their streaming stuff is changing with AT&T and everything like that. So if you're lucky enough, though, folks, for those of you obviously who live in Western Pennsylvania and you're covered, by a local affiliate, even some in Northeast Ohio, depending on who's affiliated with what, may carry the Steelers game, but you happen to be, a displaced fan, you could probably get that on NFL Network. I know sometimes even on the streaming they black these games out, which is pretty kind of crappy, but regardless, there's replays and things of that nature too. Steelers will be playing the Kansas City Chiefs. I'm sure it'll be built up as, a rematch of Week 2 from last year. I always laugh when I hear somebody say rematch of a game from the regular season in the preseason. This is a rematch. Somebody just said that, like this is a rematch of Super Bowl 30 or something like that. Like it actually matters or something. You know what I mean? Not this particular game, but it's just, this is so ridiculous. This is a rematch of, the 1996 AFC Championship. And it's just like, but none of these people, some of those players aren't even alive anymore. I mean, or, it's crazy. So, that's something I really shouldn't joke about in light of the recent, news that came out since our last episode. I think I do want to pause for one moment and do mention, condolences to the Steelers organization, friends, and family of wide receivers coach Darryl Drake, who just passed over the weekend. And, that's hitting the team pretty hard. I think it came as a complete shock to anyone and everyone. Myself personally, I remember I was listening to Steelers Nation radio morning that news broke, and I don't know, I was working out or went in a shower or something. There was something where I had a pause, where I turned off the Steelers Nation radio, set the phone to the side for, couldn't have been like just a few minutes or something, came back to it and like blown up with all kinds of notifications. My jaw just dropped. So condolences to everyone who was touched by during the life of Coach Drake. From everything I hear, just a great guy, and some of the stories coming out. Was it Ed Bouchette or who was it? Trying to think, Brian, who wrote the story about saying, he went to the hospital the night before, and they wanted, the option. Yeah. We'd like you to stay for further observation type thing. And he went back, watched film, I guess, went to bed, and, that was kind of it. And, I said, not really a joking matter, but just teasing that myself. I said, that's probably something I would do. You know what I mean?
Right.
I'm not a guy who's a big fan of, visiting the doctors or anything like that, or being held, especially in a hospital overnight or anything like that. And I like pressing my nose against the wall. I like grinding. And, he was very dedicated to his job, very beloved by everyone who knew him. And, without a doubt, he's going to be missed, and more than likely, in some way, this season will be dedicated to him, I imagine.
Yeah, it's it was Ed Bouchette who read that article. Jim Wexell did a really nice piece on how it's impacting the team. It's pretty much Joe Rutter wrote a nice piece on him. I think everybody did, because all the beat writers who at least have had some interaction with Coach Drake and know the team can see how much it actually impacted them. We've seen the pictures of Ben and Juju. We've seen the pictures of, Ryan Switzer. So clearly this is, it's a surprise. This is something that doesn't happen often, in this kind of an unexpected way. Once that story came out and you learned that, it kind of hits you even harder, because it feels more tragic. That had he just stayed, who knows? But that's the person he was. It's how he took things and how he moved on and worked on things. So, yeah, absolutely agree with the condolences there. It's a tough hit for a team that they'll have to take this and try and channel it somehow into moving forward.
Yeah, and I think the other thing was it never came off to me is that, a lot of times, we talk about people such as like Coach Dad or some coaches, that have, been doing it a very long time. Some of these guys are like in their 70s, and Darryl Drake did not come off as jumping off the page as someone. I was like, he's pretty young, and I know for some people, it's age 62 to, I think, now in 2019 is young. So it's unfortunate. I think that comes as like a surprise, just to anybody. I mean, I think about it myself. I'm like, I mean, even yourself, Brian. I mean, that's, I joke about your age, but that's not far away. You know what I mean? So it's
not.
This is one of those things where try not to make the show too somber or anything like that, but it's just. Life's short. So enjoy, folks. You just never know. And, I like to live for the moment sometimes. But speaking of, being in the moment, a lot of, you could see a lot of prayers, very, very tough as the Steelers move practices around. They were supposed to practice Sunday and Monday. One of those sessions was canceled. They were to have Tuesday off, but with the news, they shifted everything around. They end up with the final 3 days of camp all in a row. Bing, bing, bing. Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. So they're wrapping up camp. They play at home against Kansas City on Saturday. Very awkward too is the schedule, like the preseason schedule, because I don't know. I'm not necessarily like the biggest fan of. It's not like they have these big long trips. They're going to Carolina and Nashville. I mean, it's not far. But still, by the same token, it's like, they're not playing in Hawaii. Who was that was just doing that, or they're going out there like the Rams and somebody or whatever. Nice trip for them, right, for a preseason game. I can't imagine the expense too. I was thinking of that. I'm like, okay, we're flying like 90 guys to Hawaii, in the logistics of doing that for a preseason game, no less. But yeah, I know, like 2 back-to-back home games, and I guess it doesn't really matter because the starters are really only going to make their appearance like for a few series, usually in the 3rd week, and in the 4th week it's like a lot of people, and maybe even more than week 1, maybe sitting. You know what I mean? So this week, you could get a little bit more of a preview. There's some men that have not played yet. They haven't been available to play, or we haven't seen enough of them. And there's some things we're going to talk about here. But kickoff listed for 7:30 this Saturday at Hines Field. And, the Steelers are going to push forward. This is just the way it is. The NFL isn't going to stop or take a break or say, or afford the Steelers, any special privileges. This is a, as Tomlin likes to say, the moving train, right? And it's just got to keep, you got to keep moving through. And as such, the Steelers have had a longtime coach by the name of Ray Sherman, actually even a former offensive coordinator with the Steelers back in 1998. And I mean, his resume is, he's pretty much done everything with almost every position group with offense. Primarily, he has worked with wide receivers and running backs early on in his career. He's been a quarterbacks coach. He's been a tight ends coach. But probably, over the last, since the 2000s, wide receiver coach with Green Bay for about 4 or 5 seasons, a season or two with Tennessee in the same capacity, 3-4 seasons with the Cowboys. He had a little pause there or a break, and then was working with the Rams for a few years. And so the last time he's coached was back in 2015, or the 2015 season, I should say, for the then St. Louis Rams. So he's been a guest of the Steelers, a coaching consultant, as we often see a lot of the I hate to use the term like old timers, but some of the more veteran or experienced coaches that that don't have a job, maybe they don't want a job, and you usually see them in this coaching quote consultant capacity. I mean, one of the other ones that just off the top of my head was when I watched Hard Knocks last season was Al Saunders was one too that had been around the block many times. So Ray Sherman's been here, and Mike Tomlin, as I feel it's also inappropriate to kind of speak about this, but I know people are wondering, so I'm just going to give a glimpse as to some of what's already transpired with the couple days of camp that we've had, and then, this final day, and maybe even moving forward. Ray Sherman was already there. He's already been a wide receivers coach. He was already kind of helping out with Coach Drake, and then one of the assistants in his second year, Blaine Stewart. And, he's kind of maybe doing a little more right at this moment, but it doesn't mean it's a permanent position.
Right.
So the Steelers have not revealed exactly what's going to happen, if they're going to hire someone, which is, kind of difficult to do this late in the process, unless you have somebody like this, like Ray Sherman, who knows that he wants to get on the moving train, who knows that he wants a full-time job at this, juncture of his career. Maybe he just kind of wanted to hang around camp and the facility and not travel on game days and do things of that nature. So, I don't want to make any assumptions that he's just going to step into this role. The Steelers have made no indication on how they're going to split up any duties or anything moving forward, and they did that out of respect to the Drake family, as well as what we're going to do. I think the one thing I just have to say here is, and I thought this was quite preposterous, and we should have mentioned this during the Tampa Bay Buccaneers preview, Brian, because of all the former Steelers that are on Bruce Arians' coaching staff down there in Southern Florida. All of the yahoos that are out there, all the Jags that are making a big fuss over Hines Ward with the New York Jets. It's like, who cares, man? I mean, he's trying to get a coaching job. He was just working with the Alliance of American Football in like a front office type capacity. I think, Troy was the ambassador. I forget what Hines Ward was doing specifically, but, it doesn't matter. I mean, Kevin Green has went and coached places. Coaching, you're like a nomad. You know what I mean? You are a gypsy. You are a traveling band. It is very rare to have somebody like Mike Tomlin, Keith Butler, and these guys rooted and and not moving. They're like trees. They're planted in Pittsburgh and they don't move. That doesn't happen around very many other places in the NFL. Even when you see Ray Sherman, I just said what he's done since the 2000s. He's been with 4 different teams and he's in camp with the Steelers right now. You know what I mean? This is a traveling band type thing. So he's right now, Hines Ward's with the Jets, and since he's with the Jets, he's not available to come to the Steelers right now. So, let's slam the door on that for the time being.
Yeah, and look, this is an important position group, and while I'm not disparaging Hines Ward, he's over there as an intern. I think he did some work with the Steelers as an intern in previous years.
Yes.
It's unlikely that they're going to, jump somebody up into the wide receivers coach position that way. And you're right about Ray Sherman. Whether or not he wants a full-time job. There's even been speculation that they could go back and pull in the former wide receivers coach. Well, I can't remember his name, of course.
Richard Mann.
Richard Mann,
who retired.
Yeah, who retired and say, look, can you do us a solid for a year, come back for a year until – because, here's the thing about trying to find somebody at this point. The Steelers aren't the kind of organization that's going to go out and strip somebody else's coaching staff acting like the big brother or the big bully and saying, hey, we're the Steelers, we want your guy, and this is a better position than you have, come over here, because they wouldn't want somebody doing that to them. And this is a class organization. They just aren't going to do that. So they'll come up with something that works probably for the year and see how it goes, and then they'll make a bigger plan towards the end of the season, once the season rolls up, and they're done polishing that seventh Lombardi, and they'll go from there.
Yeah, and I mean, I understand he is an intern, and there could always be an inquiry or something like that, but who's to say, it's not like Hines is snubbing the Steelers by any means. I mean, I don't even know if
trying to get a job, man.
Yeah, and as far as internships go, I don't know if there's any specific. A lot of places have rules on that. Maybe he can only spend one off season with the Steelers, and then he has to go work with another club. I don't know. That could be possible. I honestly don't know the answer to that either. But it's just like, how unprofessional would it be for him to just jump ship? There would have to be some talk there, and I'm sure that it's not like the Jets organization is unfamiliar with people in the Steelers organization. They're probably all on a first name basis. I'm sure there's many people who knew Coach Drake as well, and they understand the situation. And if that arose, they would discuss and it would be allowed and things like that. But to just speculate and be like, well, they should go get this guy, or even before any of this happened over the weekend. I'm trying to catch my breath here, sorry, because I'm a little fired up just because like people were taking screen captures and they were kind of dissing Hines Ward for just living his life and doing a job. Were they mad when he was working with Sunday Night Football? I mean, come on. So yeah. It's kind of ridiculous. And Richard Mann, the previous coach, Brian and I off the air here, because we're gonna be talking about a few things, and I was Googling, as I will always Google certain things. Excuse me. And I was trying to find a little more information on Richard Mann, namely how old he is. I think he's in his 70s, and that was part of the reason he stepped away. And of course, the first thing that comes up on Brian is, I guess it says Richard Mann, pornographic actor, and I'm like, well, that's not the same guy. So I'm just not having any luck. Actually, this is what happened, because let's just segue into talking about the game that's coming up. I mean, the Chiefs and their high-powered offense probably won't be playing. So I don't think we're going to be seeing like Patrick Mahomes or anything like that. Or
I wonder about that. I'm gonna double down on you and say I think we see him for a series.
You think so? You think Andy Reid's going to do that? I don't know based on any past games, and I could find that out here just shortly. I should have probably found that out, but we're the least prepared team and blah blah blah. So I could have found that out ahead of time.
He played last week.
Did he
play
play
in the first preseason game? Yeah. So that's why I think there's a good chance he plays.
Well, I mean, I understand he's like a third-year player. I don't know. I'm not the guy that wants to risk that. I don't want him out there. That would be me. But then again, who am I? So. I just
you're not Andy Reid.
Yeah, well, he played 8 snaps, so I mean,
a couple series, a series or one or two series.
Travis Kelce was out there for 1 snap. Tyreek Hill was out there for 1 snap. Sammy Watkins was out there for 2 snaps. Okay, even Carlos Hyde was only out there for 8 snaps. Mitchell Schwartz, Eric Fisher, these guys were all out there for like 8 snaps. Okay, so I guess here we go. You can't see them, but the air quotes are coming. They played. So yippee skippy. I mean, that's kind of the same thing with like Jameis Winston in the crew last week with the Buccaneers. So
a series.
But what I was getting at was I was linking talking about finding a pornographic actor on Google with what came up, because there's like all this, I don't know where it came from. Maybe one of our listeners will prove us wrong here, but we could not find a source. I'm talking about Mike Tomlin or someone from the organization saying Mason Rudolph is playing with the ones. I haven't seen it. I know, we listen to just about and read just about anything and everything that's out there, and I couldn't find any credible source to back that up. But of course, when I did that, Google has like this section that says people also ask. And I'm like, oh, this is kind of curious. What else do people ask when they search for Mason Rudolph? What are people searching for? Whereas Mason, this isn't the top one, by the way, at least at this point, because this will probably change in 5 minutes with their algorithms. But,
Right.
I'm skipping the first one because I thought it was odd. So we'll jump down to where's Mason Rudolph from? A viable question there. He's from Rock Hill, South Carolina. Where did he go to college? Oklahoma State, the Cowboys. Is Mason Rudolph related to Kyle Rudolph? Hey, very, why not? I would ask that question maybe as well. What round was Mason Rudolph drafted? Where does he rank along, NCAA passing yards leaders? It's a very specific question to be asking Google. They must have one of the little mini devices somewhere. And then the number one, which we were like debating whether we were going to say this aloud or not, but I just think it was kind of, it's funny for different reasons, I guess, because I thought it would be obvious, but it's what ethnicity is Mason Rudolph? But that's not the part that was funny about it, necessarily. It was more, it piqued my curiosity to click on it, and it says American. Okay, gotcha. Pretty much like almost everyone that's on the roster, except for Christian Scotland Williamson, maybe, and save maybe a few others. Every now and then, there's there's always like some a Samoan lineman or something like that, or somebody has maybe they have extra heritage, but this wasn't even right. He's a smidge of this or a smidge of that, of his background. It's just he's American, American. So this is, folks. This is what this is what happens when we research things. So this is why we're just caught off guard all the time. But speaking of people we want to see and things we want to see in this preseason game, Mason Rudolph looked really sharp last week. A lot of people are really hype. All the quarterbacks for the Steelers looked really good. Okay, Josh Dobbs had his moments. I get it. Josh Dobbs didn't go out there. You realize that Josh Dobbs and Mason Rudolph attempted the same amount of passes, 8, and completed the same amount, 5. But it's Mason who got the touchdowns and looked, sharp and didn't get sacked. And Dobbs got sacked a couple times and should have been intercepted by Hargraves the third or whatever it was, just coming off injury. They're one of their top corners with him, starting corner, top guy, and that got overturned with I think offsetting penalties or something like that, or somebody got penalized on the defense, and so that didn't show up on the stat sheet. So Josh Dobbs sneaks away with a little bit higher of a quarterback rating than maybe he would have. I mean, he was at 98.4. Hodges was at 97. Hodges was 8 of 14, 57.1 per completion percent. We'd like to see that up to 60, but then again, he is the fourth string guy playing with fourth string guys or lower for the most part there. But a lot of people didn't get to see him yet, and there was a lot of excitement there. And Mason Rudolph had the 59-yard pass, but Dobbs had a 43-yard pass. So these guys, this could easily flip the script this week. And Dobbs still led a pretty long drive, but he's only in there 2 series. And I guess that's all the more they needed to see was, okay, he led this drive, but Rudolph got to play 4 series. Then, of course, he got pulled, and Devlin Hodges finished out the game in the third quarter on. So we're going to see what's going to go on with that this week because, these are things that we kind of observed in camp, and this wasn't really poo-pooing Josh Dobbs, so to speak, but it looked like he was holding on to the ball a little bit too long, maybe relying on his feet too much. He led the team in rushing because of that, quite frankly. And, it's nice to have somebody that could break through and make some plays like that. So he had a very nice run. I'm not going to necessarily knock the 36-yard play that he had. I will take it every day, twice on Sundays, especially on Sundays for the most part.
Yeah.
And you know what I mean? So it's going to be interesting to see what Dobbs, that interception or getting sacked or anything like that was a little worrisome. But we also talked about how shaky the offensive line was to start, and a lot of those men ended up playing for almost like a full game. Some things that got overlooked was Fred Johnson. Oh, everybody's all over the rookies. Fred Johnson, undrafted rookie, starting. All these linemen were out. You had Fred Johnson there. You know what I mean? Among others. And they're in their first game too, or they're guys, other players who hadn't seen a lot of action. So they kind of maybe did a little better as the game wore on. That also had to do with Tampa not playing some of their starters and or top reserves that are experienced players against, the hodgepodge offensive line with guys that are playing, maybe out of the position they may be expected to play just to get different looks and things like that. So I think a lot of that had to do with Dobbs being a little erratic too. So I'm very interested and very intrigued in seeing how all the quarterbacks do on Saturday.
Absolutely. It'll be, as you said, we read a lot, we listen to a lot. We try and gather as much information as we can, even though we are the most unprepared team in sports radio. We do actually try and find some stuff out. So it's interesting to me that I found several NFL sites speculating about how many series Ben Roethlisberger is going to play. I think the answer is going to be none.
Yeah, but the over-under on that is -1.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I can see that there's – and I'll tell you, I fall into the Tunch and Wolf's old school theory of he should have played a quarter in the first series. He should be playing a half now, 3 quarters in the third game, and be ready for the season. That's the way I view it. I know the injury thing, but that's just me. That being said, I don't expect him to play at all. If he does, at most a series. But I agree with you. I don't think I've heard anything definitive about who's going to start this game. But it won't surprise me if Mason Rudolph starts this game, because I feel confident in saying the reason Josh Dobbs started that first game was because he has seniority. And Tomlin does want to give both these guys their opportunities. It won't surprise me at all to see somebody other than Josh Dobbs start this game. I doubt it will be Devlin Hodges, which kind of leaves you with Mason Rudolph. Mm-hmm. And frankly, it's not that anybody looks bad. I really don't think any of the quarterbacks that have been in camp have looked bad. But I think as far as the number 2 role goes, and I wasn't a big giant Mason Rudolph fan to begin with, but I will say I think he's looked better than Josh Dobbs overall. And the offense looks more organized and feels more on point when he was in the game last time. We talked all about that. So it won't surprise me to see Mason Rudolph start this game. And I agree. It's going to be nice to see how do they react now. Now this is, I don't know. I don't know how many starters are going to be playing on the Kansas City side of the ball. On defense, I don't know that it matters. I'm not overly impressed with the Kansas City defense. I think part of the reason that maybe Mahomes played a little bit last week was Andy Reid probably realizes he's got to score a lot of points again this year.
Or he just wanted to hurt the Bengals' feelings, which I'm always down for. I mean,
I'm all good with that. Yeah,
Andy Dalton always plays in the preseason. Like every one of these games, he usually gets in like a series or two, which I always find like really bizarre. And I thought that was like a Marvin Lewis thing, but here again, and I actually, I should have picked up. I'm laughing because you were like, Mahomes did play, and I was scratching my head. I was actually sitting in a bar on Saturday in Cincinnati area. So the game was on, and I'm like, I'm looking. I remember Andy Dalton playing, and I was thinking about how awkward that was. But it completely past my brain that I didn't even remember seeing Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce or Sammy Watkins, and I honestly didn't even remember Mahomes, but he played the most out of all of those guys. So I temper expectations. If you're real excited and you think you're going to see Mahomes, you're going to go to Heinz Field, and it's like he's probably going to play like a series. That would be my guess. Yeah,
I agree. And so I just feel like it's important for us to see, how well they play this game. Obviously, I'm encouraged. I feel like we have solid quarterback depth right now. And that's a good thing. So,
yeah, and I mean, that's kind of where I was going at too. It's like, don't blink or you're going to miss, some of the Chiefs stars. Don't blink. You don't even have to blink. Most of the Steelers guys should be sitting. It'd be preposterous for me to think that Ben's going to play. We know some other guys, all the injury stuff at least hasn't been blown out of proportion yet. This, off season, this training camp season and preseason, like it usually does. I think everyone's had a cooler heads will prevail. I remember we always talk about the famous Marcus Wheaton hobbled off the field, and it was a broken shoelaces. He literally couldn't walk in his cleats. If you've ever had that happen with a shoe or a sandal, you could sympathize with it. Now imagine wearing football spikes. So I was looking here though, like this gives you an idea. There were 4 quarterbacks that played for the Chiefs against the Bengals, and there were 10 different guys who ran the football, of course, being, the quarterbacks a couple of times here too. So that just kind of gives you an indication of what's going on. Andy Reid's looking at everybody. I mean, the amount of guys who also caught a pass in the game is like 15 or something like that. It's just it's a long list. He pretty much played everybody. Everybody had gotten their participation ribbon for the first week of the preseason, and if they play all 4 weeks, they get a Letterman's jacket. So so you get a letter, and then we'll see if you make the team or anything like that. But Brian's like very interested in the Letterman's jacket.
Get a Letterman's jacket. Hey.
But there's been a lot of talk about there's already been people pulling the trigger. Can they trade Josh Dobbs? Will they explore doing something like that? Well, let's see. He's in year 3. He has a 4-year contract. So they would be giving up on somebody with 2 years left on a contract that already has 2 years of experience in an NFL system. And experience in an NFL system is very valuable, particularly when it is of a winning culture like the Pittsburgh Steelers. We've seen it happen all throughout the years where there's backup quarterbacks that are hyped. Usually, somebody playing behind Tom Brady, for example, or somebody, in the past, Bill Walsh and those guys, George Seifert and that. The 49ers had like a quarterback factory there for many, many years. So it was like whoever came off of out of there, maybe they trade. But think about it, like some of the things that I'm reading here, even from people who are supposed to be like journalists or quote media, maybe no more than us at times. They should, I should say, far less than us because we don't have these stupid takes. And the stupid take is Josh Dobbs was a 4th round draft pick. You're not getting anything. You're not even going to get a 4th round draft pick for him because, or above that, because teams were not willing to invest a 1 through a 3 to draft him in the first place. Now he's been in the system. He is not Jimmy G. He's not Jacoby Brissett. He has not started and played a full game yet to put anything on tape to show any type of potential value for any type of pick. And even at that, wasn't Garoppolo only like a 2nd round pick to the 49ers in a contract here because they weren't going to be able to re-sign him. And that's where the Steelers would be if this was next year. I don't know that we've seen a ceiling for Josh Dobbs or any reason to move away from him because this is all based on speculation of 1 preseason game, 2 series of plays for Dobbs and 4 for Rudolph. Come on, folks. There's a lot of football still yet to be played. Because this time last year, we're discussing whether it was going to be Landry Jones or Josh Dobbs. We already assumed Mason Rudolph was going to make the roster. Now we're already talking about Dobbs versus Hodges. It's like, come on, man. I mean, Dobbs is the guy that's already there and in that position. At the very worst case scenario, I think he would lose his backup job. Now, if somebody makes a trade offer, the Steelers may be willing to listen, but what's that got to be to give up a guy that still has 2 more seasons left under contract at a minimum? Who's to say they don't re-sign him after that too? You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And
absolutely,
yeah. And I mean, the same thing. Like they had Landry Jones forever, and it's like it's because it's a development thing. He may not develop into a full-time starter, but he may develop into a backup if Rudolph becomes a full-time starter down the road. We don't know. Some of these things are very unknown. Or Steelers just draft another running back. So I'm not ready to ship him out of town or anything like that either. And when you look at other backups and everything around the league, I would much rather have Josh Dobbs, as much as I said with Landry Jones, who's available. We could always just bring him back.
Absolutely.
Than other guys. And I mean, I know Hodges was impressive. Hodges came in to as an invite for the rookie camp and knocked the guy's name I can never say, Brogan Roback.
Brokeback Mountain.
Yeah. Oh, don't say that. That's going to be a bad nickname for him. It's a bad nickname. Inappropriate, Brian. I just smacked his hands. It's
I'm sorry. It's the way it sounds.
I know it does, and that's why I get confused and I can't say his name. But I mean, he basically bumped him, who's been in other camps. He bumped him off the roster because he has shown potential. He has shown some promise, but there's not enough snaps, and there's other positions that are valuable for the team to have on their practice squad in order to. This is what you see during training camp, and I know there was a question from someone about like what happens? Why do they release this player and bring this guy on? Well, there's injuries and there's veterans and people that are sitting. They need X amount of cornerbacks or DBs to be able to actually run the drills that they're running. They might need 10 bodies for a drill or something like that. You know what I mean? Or an even number or whatever be the case. They can't shortchange the other players that are trying to make the team or the guys that are already there from getting their reps in by not having enough bodies. And that's where the word camp body, kind of originates from. So when you look at the regular season, there's not really, I don't think, room for 4 quarterbacks. A lot of teams don't even keep 3 as it is. They may only keep 2, which I think is really playing with fire at times. And I understand the third quarterback on game days is usually inactive. They're not even eligible to come in the game if there were an injury. That was the jag-off that was up in the stands last year at a game. Put in Mason Rudolph! And I believe that was the Chiefs game actually in week 2. And I was like, he's not even, he can't come in. He doesn't have a helmet. He's not even in pads. It's like, what are you talking about? Actually, he may have been in pads. I don't know. He doesn't get a helmet, meaning if people aren't aware of this, what is it, 46? Is it 46 or 40?
40.
No. How many players sit out on game day? 8 that are inactive, I think.
45.
Yeah. So, it's God, I hope I didn't get that wrong. But anyways, there's X number of guys who are ineligible to play for whatever reason. I think it's a stupid NFL rule. I think everybody that's on the 53 should be eligible to play in the game, and I don't understand the actual concept behind that. In fact, I think they should increase the number for the rosters too, because I think it would help a lot of teams to have an extra offensive lineman or defensive lineman not only active on a game day, but maybe available for practice and things of that nature. So, but anyways, that's the structure of your roster and things of that. And the reason I'm bringing all this up is that I don't think there's space for Devlin Hodges unless there was some like miracle offer that falls out of the sky where the Steelers cannot refuse and they allow Josh Dobbs to go. Now, who is Devlin Hodges? Well, I mean, clearly, if you're saying that Devlin Hodges makes this team, you feel that Rudolph is the 2 and he's ready to step in an NFL game if Ben were to be, unavailable for whatever reason. Either they already got like the entire AFC North locked up because they went 15-0 and they're entering the final week, going to Baltimore, and they put Rudolph in. Or, in the middle of the season, Ben gets hurt and, you have a situation where they play like when they played the Patriots and Landry Jones goes in there. How comfortable do you feel with Dobbs versus Rudolph versus even Hodges? Because remember, Landry Jones was that third guy, and then Vic got hurt, and he kind of he wasn't always the backup, you know what I mean? So it's just one of these things that's it's inconceivable to me. It's not to say that Devlin Hodges isn't talented. I think he's one of the if it were a different year, I think he could be the third quarterback easily, and I think he's going to find work elsewhere. I think he's putting together a nice resume. This is just the wrong time, maybe wrong situation, maybe wrong team even. But I was also kind of surprised too, because usually you don't see that fourth quarterback take a lot of passes. I know we got to see Dustin Vaughn, or Landry Jones was hurt at one point, Greg Kowski was hurt, and you got to see more. You had 5 preseason games with the Hall of Fame game. You had things of that nature where you did get to see that fourth guy, but typically I don't know that the Steelers have played that fourth guy a lot, and Hodges got a lot of time, in that last game. He may get a lot of time this week too. I mean, I think he's getting a fair shake, but to just say that he's going to, bump somebody off the roster or make somebody expendable, it's very difficult for me to say unless, let's just say Josh Dobbs just collapses, has a complete and total collapse, and then what do you do with that too? I don't know, because even the team is they've stuck with other players who've had a similar type of breakdown, and it doesn't mean they're just going to necessarily run them out of town.
Right. I can't imagine that's going to happen, but it's possible. It's just unlikely. It's chances are less than 2%, maybe less than 1%.
Yeah.
It's just very unlikely. And I'll apologize in advance to anybody who notices our sniffling. My allergies, and I think Joe's as well.
Oh, my goodness. Yeah.
Acting up big time.
It's been crazy, man. It's just like bombarded. And for whatever reason, leaves are already falling here, too. Like, I think it's just been like the heat and the dryness that we've had. And I'm just, they had guys out with a leaf crew blowing leaves and stuff. And I'm just like, this is October? Like, no. And this is August. October. What is going on? Everything's upside down, Brian.
Yeah, so I guess we've beaten the quarterback horse to death.
No, I want to talk about it more.
No.
We need to talk about the Chiefs quarterbacks. Chad Henne.
Well,
okay, move on.
Okay. I guess what outside of that, I think the biggest thing that I'm interested in seeing, there's actually a couple. I was impressed that Fred Johnson got a lot of time in that game. This is that undrafted, what did I say they call him? Giant, huge, big, whatever, Florida, Tallahassee, I don't know, giant state of Florida, whatever Mike Tomlin called him.
Yeah.
I can't remember now.
They call him Gainesville.
Big Gainesville. Thank you. I'm encouraged to see if he gets more time again tonight. Not tonight, but in this game, to see how he how he continues to grow and work. I think he's a guy that is very intriguing. But beyond that, I want to see Devin Bush's encore.
Yeah.
To his preseason start. I want to see how he plays. In fact, I want to see the inside linebacker group because it was impressive in the first preseason game, and I want to see that continue as a unit, as a whole, regardless of whether they're playing the varsity level, JV level, or Pee-wees.
Yeah, I agree, and it would be nice to see an encore. We all get excited over one game, and I mean, it was a heck of a one game to watch with Devin Bush, so we'll see more. And hey, how about Mike Tomlin calling Ulysses Gilbert Ulysses Grant? I have now been given a free pass to say it as many times and get it wrong because I even wrote it wrong in a darn article. It was like, hey, here's the guys to kind of watch, and the Pro Football Focus Wizards put like 4 Steelers defenders as like their top guys for the preseason week 1, and Gilbert was, I think, one of them that made that, and I forget who else, but anyway, I mean, I'm going to be interested to see some of this. I mean, you got some guys that are still injured. It does concern me though. Tomlin made that comment about Sutton Smith falling behind. So injuries and things of that nature, beating people up. I know on this program last week, I said one of the guys I wanted to watch was Artie Burns, and he would have got an awful lot of playing time last week, would have started, et cetera, if he was, wasn't nursing a groin. So he's been back practicing. We're going to see if he ends up in there because, I mean, I think Justin Lane, I'm pulling up right now, but I want to say Justin Lane played the entire game.
Yes.
I mean, Fred Johnson did, Zach Banner did. You may see the same with that too, because DeCastro has been, a little bit nagging. I don't know that they're going to play him or Big Al or Pouncey or anybody like that. So we may see a lot of the, same with the reserve linemen. Let me see. I was looking on defense here. JT Jones and Justin Lane nearly played, the most defensive snaps, I'm going to say anyways. So there's nobody that played 100% of this game, so I was trying to figure out what the total snaps were, but JT Jones was 68, Justin Lane was 64. That's quite a bit. So
yeah.
And then outside of that, I mean, Ola played quite a bit. Cam Kelly played quite a bit. Cam Sutton, Gilbert eventually came in, played a lot. As our skipper, it's going to be basically a lot of the same. I believe. I mean, the most that we saw was the 2 most recent first round picks were out there. I don't think you're going to go all the way back to TJ Watt, but you're going to probably see Edmonds. We may even see Sean Davis just because he's been, limited the last few weeks or so just to, kind of get his sea legs, so to speak. Let me see. I'm trying to think who else. No Joe Hayden. I don't know. We didn't see Steven Nelson. We may not. I think he's regarded as kind of a veteran, even though he's new to the team. So I don't know that they're going to put it out there at risk. One of the starting corners getting hurt. I think that would be a nightmare situation. It would go we'd go from a very good situation to a very bad one. So I kind of want to see where Artie's at. Hey, if he's got to line up with one of these guys, Tyreek Hill or Sammy Watkins or something, they bring the ones out there. What better way to see, if he's rebounding? He's been playing with an attitude. He also has been playing on special teams, so I think that's somebody to kind of keep your eye on. Mark Barron, we'll see if we see Mark Barron at all out there. All the inside linebackers you were talking about. Vince Williams is also, hamstring, I believe. So, nothing. And I don't think anything's serious. It's just one of these things where they're monitoring and making sure he doesn't do anything to make it serious. So we probably won't see Vince Williams. I think it was interesting. Mike Tomlin called Mark Barron a mute and says, he doesn't talk a lot, but everybody pays attention to his actions. So I mean that's a statement there as well. Let me see. I don't know. You got me thinking on defense. I mean, Hargrave, Javon, Jay Wobble was out there a little bit too. We didn't see, Tuitt and Cam Hayward or any of that. I think that's pretty much going to be the same status quo. The tight end situation is going to be interesting because CSW is banged up. Zach Gentry is a little dinged up too. So, I mean, they're kind of running a little thin there. It may just be the Xavier Grimble. We may see a little more of Trevor Wood in that spot. And, Trevor Wood was out there for about 10, 11, actually 11. I got it right here, 11 snaps. So it'll be interesting because I thought Zach Gentry looked pretty good, had a pretty good showing in that, the last game. He may not be able to capitalize on that, availability, another one of those things. So you may see Xavier Grimble, play just a little bit more. I think, I'm trying to think of who else didn't play. Artie Burns was one of my top ones. We were talking about who we were excited to see. On the offensive side of the ball, Steelers Nation is not seeing Deontay Johnson yet. And right. I believe he's going to be unveiled on Saturday. And, if the quarterbacks have a chance to do what they were doing last week, I think it's going to be fireworks. And I think people are going to be talking about him in much the same way, they were talking about Bush and a few others from last week.
Yeah, I think there's a good chance of that. He was back on the practice field, so there's a chance he can get some reps in this game. I want to see Ola, on the defensive side as well. I want to see him continue his climb. I really do want to see Deontay Johnson get some time on the field. There's a part of me that wants to see if Mahomes starts and plays a series, I'd like to see the starting defense play a series and see if they can shut him down. It's even unlikely because it's such a vanilla scheme that they run in these preseason games. But I'd like to see what you can do, to get a good sense of what the defense is. But again, you're right. The injury thing. It's a toss up, but there's still a lot to watch. I mean, you just want to see some competition. If the Patrick Mahomes air show does show up in this game, you want to see if they can cover the tight ends, which was a problem last week. Whether it's Travis Kelce or whether it's somebody else getting snaps, are they continuing to be wide open? Is there adjustments made there? I'm really, other than those few performances I said I want to look at individually, and I agree with you about Artie Burns too. Not that I don't have a lot of expectation right now for Artie, but I'd like to see what his situation is in comparison to how he has been. It'll be nice to see if he is playing with a little more fire, a little more spunk, and has some of that swagger that Ike Taylor would have liked him to have. Swagging. But other than that, what I really want to see is continued cohesion out of both units, especially on defense. Good communication. Not a lot of breakdowns in passing guys off through zones and what have you. I think those things are going to be important as we move forward. And this is the last home preseason game. The next two are on the road. Again, in that home atmosphere, this is where they can try and rev things up a little bit.
Yeah, and I wanted to go through, we were talking about did not play, and this would be the Steelers list of did not play, so expect most of this. We're going to give a yay-nay here. Ben Roethlisberger, not going to play. Dante Moncrief, still kind of, I think, working his way back into things. I don't anticipate seeing him as excited as I would like to see him. I think he gets held another week and then may show up with the starters for week 3. And then you're going to, I think, see what he and Ben are capable of doing together, because it was quite exciting in camp before Moncrief hurt his hand or finger or whatever be the case. Deontay Johnson back at practice. I think we'll see him. Juju, not a chance. No. Juju's not going to be out there. Sean Davis, maybe a series or two, maybe, because they overworked Cam Kelly, and why not? If Mahomes is out there, why not have your 2 starting safeties? So Edmonds played. I was even kind of a little surprised at that, but they are a little thin at certain spots. So Sean Davis maybe back out there, depending on how they want to bring along that injury. Steven Nelson. I can't imagine any reason I would want him on the field at this point, along with Joe Hayden, who's, foot contusion. I really hate contusion. It's just such a, I don't know. We'll have to ask Terry about that one. She's the expert.
It's a bruise.
Yeah, we can't say these type of things anymore, because then it's that has a different terminology. We have this giant medical dictionary of, if we say A versus B, then all of a sudden it's a whole other thing to freak out about. Let's see. So Joe Hayden, that's a negative. Artie Burns, more than likely, I would think. Brian Allen is another guy that, we need to see something and quick, because other guys are getting their opportunities, and that means he's not getting his. So we'll see what's going on with Brian Allen. I don't even remember really seeing his name, in any real injury reports or anything like that. I know both Hay and Burns were out for a day or two of practice earlier the week before, but I don't know. I don't know what's going on there. James Conner, I wouldn't expect to see.
No.
You're not going to see Ralph Webb. He's no longer on the team. Sorry, Ralph. That's cold. I know. That's bad. Bad Joe. Just smacked myself. Heartless, yeah. Well, I'm going through the names, okay? I'm going through the names. Just in case anybody sees that, or they missed it, you know what I mean? That was surprising to me. He was getting quite a few training camp snaps, and, just poof. I guess maybe he got hurt. Or, sometimes
wasn't an injury. Yeah, I thought it was an injury.
Yeah, these guys, it's unfortunate too. Maybe he'll be in camp again next year, because I think they really liked him. Sutton Smith, he's got to get on the field. It doesn't sound like he is yet. If he doesn't get out there by week 3, Brian, and considering 53 spots in limited camp, I think he's going to be an injured reserve candidate. I think that's what's going to end up happening. So we'll see. Bud Dupree, yeah. I don't think we're going to see Bud. I don't think we're going to see Pouncey, DeCastro, Ramon Foster. I don't think we see any of those guys. Vance McDonald, highly unlikely. TJ Watt, even more highly unlikely, even though he's back at it. And picking off Ben as he's already, going the other way. Stephon Tuitt, highly doubt that Tuitt and Hayward, your grown-ass men here, are going to end up playing. And, of course, Vince Williams, we already mentioned, with the hamstring. So you could pretty much look at that as being almost the same exact kind of lineup or same, situation here with players that aren't going to play. I do have somebody else I wanted to throw out as far as exciting players I'm excited to see, or a bounce back week, and I think my guy right here is going to be Benny Snell. 2 yards per carry, really. I'm not going to say struggled, but it wasn't there for whatever reason. First game jitters, patchwork offensive line, Bucks defense, or scheme, whatever be the case, vanilla schemes, you know what I mean? But 13 carries, 26 yards, 2 yards per carry. That's, Andre Ellington even did better than that with the Buccaneers. He was at their worst with 4 for 9, 2.3. But I think Benny Snell, I think we're going to see bounce back. He's a very hard-nosed runner. We've seen what he can do with camp. We want to see this against another team. This is a whole other week. Maybe some of the butterflies are gone for a lot of the players, and they might be a little more cohesive. So he's kind of my guy, my other guy to keep an eye on.
Yeah, I agree with you. I forgot about Benny Snell football, which is a terrible thing. I will be looking to see him make improvements, and maybe if the line makes improvements initially, he will look better. But I thought he made some reads that were a little questionable about where to take the ball last time. So it'll be nice to see if he just hits the hole and drives. But yeah, I can't disagree with any of the comments you made. I think that most of the players we didn't see, we're not going to see, and we will see them in the third preseason game almost certainly, because that's the tune-up, and then we will not be talking about anybody in that last one. But we will see where we go from there. Yeah, I forgot about Benny. That's a good point, and he needs to make a statement, because again, it's not that he had a bad game, but it was. I hate this term, but I love using it. It's so strange. It was underwhelming.
Yeah, well, I mean, it is what it is sometimes. He probably feels the same way, and I'm not here to beat him up because I really feel he could go out there and do the very same, beat everybody else up, very much so this weekend. And you're going to have those games. I mean, not everybody's, lights out, all pro every single week. That's why it's team sports,
Yep.
So I would be remiss, Brian. I got one more thing that I got to bring up. I got to ask you if you happen to have on hand, because I know you collect a lot of helmets. Do you happen to have a Shoot Air Advantage adult large helmet that was manufactured in 2010 or after?
And if I did, and by the way, I actually do. But if I did, and I was willing to get rid of it, the last thing I would do is ask for any Raiders gear for it. So no, it's staying with me, man.
And I'm sure you've Joey Bag of Donuts that's out here on Twitter is, I guess, because we tweet back and forth every now and then, like one of the top comments, it shows up, I guess, in their algorithms. I really shouldn't repeat this, but it's so funny that I have to. He says, you should be looking for a mental hospital and maybe some foot cream. And it's just, and maybe some foot cream, So we have one other person. We have a legitimate, real shout out we want to give here to one of the staff sergeants, Jeremy Egger. I hope I got your name right. Sounds like Egger. That's currently, doing another tour deployed in Afghanistan. A listener of the show. Hey, thanks for the kind words, Mr. Egger. And we're glad that we're able to keep you informed with the Steelers. So take care. And make sure you get back in touch with us when you land back here in the States. So,
absolutely,
yeah, absolutely. It was a very, very cool message he sent along. I won't repeat all of everything that was there, but absolutely wanted to give you a shout out for sure. Thanks for sending us the message. We appreciate that too. We appreciate when everybody, we appreciate the comments. Sometimes it's just it's humbling and rewarding just to know that everyone enjoys tuning in, and whenever we hear that. We give credit where credit's due. So even though we're the least prepared guys and just, we're kind of a few yinzers ourselves. So, but
yes.
Any closing words, Brian, while we wrap this somewhat of a preview show, because you know what, it's a preseason game. There isn't nothing to really preview. It's like, what are the Chiefs going to throw at whatever? You notice we didn't even talk about them barely. It's like, well, you might see Mahomes because it's
yeah. That's the big deal. You might see Mahomes, you might not. Who cares about the rest of them?
Yeah.
I mean, they have an interesting running back situation, but, some guy, I don't even remember his name, he kind of flashed for them last week. So are they going to be a committee of running backs, or is this guy going to flash again? I don't care. It's the Chiefs. I don't care.
Yeah, and it's the second week of the preseason, We're really more concerned about the makeup of our team more than anything.
I just want to say thank you for your service to Jeremy again. Appreciate the kind words. That's all I got, man. I'm ready to watch another game. And maybe in the post game, remember to give out some grown ass man awards, which I forgot to do last week.
And, part of the reason for that, Brian, is they're talking committee. Early injury to Damian Williams, who, was kind of penciled in as the next Andy Reid kind of workhorse. So, whatever that we always talk about, it's a revolving door there. And it's part of the reason we trash the Browns and the Kareem Hunt thing. we kind of poo-poo that because we've seen Spencer Ware, Charkandrick West, and, even when Reid was over with the Eagles, there was like a revolving door of guys, some with, like Westbrook and LaShawn McCoy and stuff like that have had good careers, but you know what I mean? Right now, it's like they, like I said, what was it? There had 10 different guys who carried the ball, so it's hard to keep track of who's doing what and where when, everybody's carrying the ball maybe 4 or 5 times. No one, that's the reason why they think it's a committee, because they're looking at so many different players here in this position, while another guy is, banged up now, and it's created the opportunity for them where they need to see what else they got on their depth chart.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, well, that'll do it for us. Brian, thanks once again for joining me today.
Always a pleasure to spend some time with my brother from another mother.
Yeah, where am I at? Am I the middle child? That's not how this works.
You are the middle child. Absolutely. In this situation, you're the middle child. So get over your middle child syndrome.
Hey, did you realize it was Middle Child Day on Monday? No, because no one ever recognizes the middle child. That's why.
There you go.
So,
absolutely.
Hey, folks, no, we really do appreciate all of your comments. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, leave a review if you're on a platform that allows you to do so. My name's Joe. His name's Brian. Until next time, we encourage everyone to be safe, be good, and we'll catch you later.
We would like to thank you for listening and remind our listeners to follow us on social media and our website, www.steelcityunderground.com.